The summer transfer window is just around the corner and we're already starting to see more targets every single day. Today's news pertaining to actual centre-backs. We're going to take a look at the 2 Premier League targets that have been mentioned and compare them to our current centre-backs to see how they fare. Got a little bit more transfer news pertaining to Newcastle, but potentially 2 of our players who are on their transfer list for the summer that could do us a couple of favours. David Ornstein is back and he's got some things to say about Liam Rosigne, his position at Chelsea, and also Chelsea's idea of what they're going to be looking for in the transfer market. And then from the Man City press conference, we've got a few notes from Liam Rosigne about how he's managing the squad going forward, bearing in mind the games we've got left and what's still to go on. A couple of updates about injured players and when we might expect to see them back. And a final word on a rumour pertaining to the Chelsea dressing room that Liam Rosigne is firmly putting to bed. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sink, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. Ooh, and I can feel it. Hold on to your hats, people. The summer transfer window is coming, and I've been saying this for ages. I think it's going to be absolutely massive. But guys, before we get into it, if you are enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. So we've got loads to get into today, so let's just get into it. PYS tweeted this from The Guardian Sport. Chelsea are preparing for a big summer and have shortlisted Murillo from Nottingham Forest. CFC have also been linked with Jan-Paul van Hecke from Brighton. So this is good news, man. This is good news. And this isn't the kind of like PR centre-back news or PR transfer news. Do you know what I mean? We're not going in for, you know, Housen from Real Madrid or, do you know what I mean, big crazy centre-back targets that are going to cost loads and loads and loads of money. We're looking at realistic targets that definitely add to the squad. I've talked about Murillo a few times, but this will be the first time I've talked about Jan-Paul van Hecke. I really like Murillo. Left-footed centre-back, another to join our Brazilian South American contingent, which is always a good thing for camaraderie. And he's a bit of a beast, isn't he? He's a bit of a beast. I like that about him. He's played really, really well for Nottingham Forest for the last few seasons. Regardless of whether they've been challenging for the Champions League or fighting relegation, he's been one of their best players. Jan-Paul van Hecke I knew a little bit less about, but I'm not going to lie to you, just based on the very basic stats that we're going to look at today, I think he looks like a great player. So let's have a little look at Murillo and Jan-Paul van Hecke to see how they're doing compared to our current centre-backs. And like I say, I'm not deep diving into the stats. We're just going to look at the surface level stuff. But I think it's interesting to look at the kind of centre-backs we're targeting versus the ones we have in the squad. So we start with Murillo, and he has a SofaScore rating of 7 so far, which is good. That's basically like the bare minimum you want for a Premier League player. So the thing with SofaScore, you know, they've all got their own marking metrics, right? And this isn't about saying that SofaScore is 100% the right one. It is just, you know, it's got a reasonably good idea of, based on their own stats and metrics, how players are doing, and a 7 is pretty good. You can see that across the board there, he's had reasonably good performance with the odd dip. He's only made 23 appearances this season, so I don't know how much that is to do with injury. If you know that, let me know in the comments, but he's obviously playing a lot when he can, and he's got 1 goal. And the interesting thing for me is always the heat map, right? You can see he is that left-sided centre-back, and not even on occasion, fairly often, he's getting above the halfway line to, you know, make that high press, and I guess occasionally get involved with attacks as well. But what you can see there that is really good is that really concentrated box presence as well, which I really like. So Murillo, for me, looks like a good player, has done for the last few seasons. He's 23 years old, which is good because he still fits the model, but he's got a lot of Premier League experience. And I think he's just an instant upgrade on some of the other guys we've got who we'll move on to in a minute. Next up, we're going to look at Jan-Paul van Hecke, and he is having a really good season, really, really good season. So he's a 25-year-old right-sided Dutch centre-back. He's got a 7.31 rating on SofaScore, which, spoiler alert, is by far and away the best rating out of any of the 4 players that we're going to look at today. You can see his heat map is very, very concentrated on the right and very central as well, but there's a lot there, do you know what I mean? So he's played 29 matches this season, which is a little bit more than Murillo. But I think what's crazy about Van Hecke that I didn't really realise, he's got 3 goals and 2 assists in the Premier League this season. For a centre-back, that's amazing. And what you can see, it's not a huge amount, but he's got a fairly concentrated amount of red in the opposition box as well. Murillo didn't really have that, so he's not so much of a box threat kind of thing, but Van Hecke definitely seems to be getting involved. I mean, 2 assists, that's like wild for a centre-back, right? With fullbacks, you kind of expect it. You know, Marco Correa scored 7 goals for us last season. I remember that amazing season when we had Branislav Ivanovic, and he scored 7 goals in the league as well. And for a player like Van Hecke to be getting involved with scoring, which is something you'd like to see, but also getting a couple of assists on the board like that, obviously is a really good thing, and you can see why Liam Rosigne would like something like that, because obviously we want centre-backs that can play with the ball at their feet, and evidently Van Hecke is a good passer. So of the 2, it seems fairly obvious at the moment that Van Hecke would probably be the preferred choice, but I do like Murillo for different reasons, and maybe it's not impossible that we could go in for both, because I am expecting a massive overhaul of the centre-backs this season. So the 2 centre-backs from Chelsea I've decided to compare them to are Trevor Chalobah, who has been obviously our most consistent centre-back of the season, and Wesley Fofana, who is our kind of next most used and has had the better, even though though he's been terrible recently, overall has probably had the better performance of the rest of our centre-backs combined. So we start with Chalobah. So he's got a 7.0 rating on SofaScore, which, like I say, kind of just puts him in that average Premier League stat, which is good, which was the same as what Murillo had. But look at that heat map, man. Trevor Chalobah absolutely everywhere, because he has been playing on the left, he has been playing on the right, and it's quite rare. Do you know what I mean? It's like all of the other centre-backs that we're looking at are very, very wedded to one side, but Trevor Chalobah's versatility in being able to play in both of those sides is obviously really good. He's made 29 appearances, which is the same as Van Hecke, and he scored 3 goals, which is the same as Van Hecke, but he's not getting any assists. So for me, the thing with Trevor Chalobah, I think he's going to be sold, if I'm completely honest. He's got 2 years left on his deal. He's a pure profit asset, so we'll get 30, 40 mil, for him easy, and that is pure profit on the books. If we do buy in other, you've got to bear in mind Levi Colwell's coming back next season, and providing he's fit, he's clearly going to be getting into the first team a lot. And if we do buy the likes of a Van Hecke, for instance, who is just a bit in front of Chalobah, and he's got a 0.3 more average rating for the season, and obviously he's getting assists as well. I'm not 100% convinced Chalobah's going to be happy to just take a back seat when he's been basically our starting centre-back for the majority of the season so far. So as much as I like Trevor Chalobah, and I think keeping him around would be a great idea, and he's 26 now as well, do you know what I mean? So he's one of the more experienced players on our books. I just have a feeling that he's going to get sold. And then we take a look at Wesley Fofana, who started really well when he came back into the team. He's obviously been out injured for ages, but it's just not going well recently, is it? He doesn't seem to have taken to Liam Rosenior very well at all, and it has really brought out some of the deficiencies in his game. 6.95, so the lowest rated centre-back on this list so far. He's made 19 appearances, which is also the lowest. No goals, 1 assist. And he is also more of a one-sided centre-back. He is spending a bit of time in the attacking box, but the problems with Fofana have just been laid bare for all to see, haven't they? And the thing is, like, if you said to me, who would you rather sell, Fofana or Chalobah? It's like, obviously I'd rather sell Fofana, but I think that the business structure essentially puts an end to that, because we spent nearly 80 mil on Wesley Fofana. He's been with us for a few seasons, but I think it is very unlikely that we sell him without losing money on him, and potentially he could still come good. We have seen it this season. Him and Trevor Chalobah got like loads of clean sheets in a row when he came back into the team, so there is definitely something there. And like I say, it's like, from a playing staff point of view, yeah, keep hold of Chalobah, get rid of Fofana. But is someone going to come in with more than 20 to 30 mil for Fofana? And that is a massive loss. Do you know what I mean? That's a huge loss. We'd be taking a massive loss on that. So unfortunately, just based on the model, Blueco and the structure and stuff, I don't necessarily see it happening. But what is the best thing out of this in general? If we're going for players like Murillo and we're going for players like Van Hecke, then that is really promising. Those are the sorts of defenders I think we should be looking at. And Van Hecke in particular, I think looks like he'd fit in the team really, really well. So we'll move on to a little bit more transfer news and its potential out. So this from Transfer News Live was pertaining to Newcastle, but it pertains to us as Chelsea fans as well. Newcastle have a 5-man shortlist for the summer as they look to add a striker to the squad. The shortlist is as it stands: Gonzalo Garcia from Real Madrid, Goncalo Ramos from Paris Saint-Germain, Darwin Núñez currently of Al Hilal, but the last two, Liam Delap from Chelsea and Nicholas Jackson, whose club wasn't listed. Maybe it was in the show more bit, but we know that obviously he's at Bayern Munich at the moment and he is one of our players. So I think the headline news there is that Liam Delap, do you know what I mean, is like, I think we'd have to jump at the chance to sell Liam Delap, to be completely honest, if a reasonable offer or even a tiny profit, if we can make a tiny profit on Liam Delap and reinvest that into a striker that fits the squad more, I think we kind of have to. Think that Liam Delap has been really polarising, because I, along with a lot of other Chelsea fans, see the potential. It looks like if you play to his strengths that he could be a baller, and obviously got 12 goals at Ipswich in a relegation threatened side at the age of 21 last season, which was really, really impressive. But when you look at the way that we play, when you look at João Pedro obviously being the best striker that we've had since Diego Costa, by the way, and even looking at Nicholas Jackson, who also was quite close to being as good as João Pedro has been this season, we obviously like a striker that's got a little bit more about his game. Liam Delap, a bit of a bruiser, and I think the problem with Liam Delap is not that he's not good, I just think you have to play to his strengths in order to get the best out of him, and that requires changing our entire footballing philosophy. All this playing out from the back and high pressing and whatever doesn't work for a player like Liam Delap, do you know what I mean? You've got to be getting the ball to him and defending deep, and it looks like that kind of thing anyway. So I would be interested to see that if an offer came in for Liam Delap from a Newcastle, if it was a 30, 40, if it was what we paid for him, we'd make a profit just because of, amortization and how the book value works. It wouldn't be a lot, but it gives us that money back to reinvest in someone else who I think we could probably do a better job of getting a backup striker for João Pedro, who has similar qualities and maybe adds a little, for instance, we've already got Omega coming in. Omega is 100%, although not exactly like João Pedro, he's a lot more like Nicholas Jackson. He's a player that comes in and offers something else. He can drift out wide, he can get assists, and we just don't see that kind of thing from Liam Delap. The Nicholas Jackson thing I think is interesting. Nicholas Jackson obviously is going to be more expensive, but has Premier League experience, and albeit he's not played very much at Bayern Munich, he is scoring goals and stuff over there at the moment as well. So I don't think they come in for both. Maybe they would, I don't know. I have seen already that they're looking at shifting Waltermada. I think Visser, and it only had a really short contract anyway, so they might look to move him on, and obviously he's not been able to play a lot this season because he's been injured. Nicholas Jackson at Newcastle I think would probably work quite well. He's not exactly the same, but maybe a little bit more like Alexander Isak, where he's quite a mobile striker. I think there's basically no chance of him coming back into the Chelsea squad, although I and a lot of other people would like to see what he could do maybe out on the left wing. And if we had a strike force next season of Omega, Jackson and João Pedro, I think that would be great. But it just feels like a case of too many bridges have been burned with the whole Maresca thing and him pushing the move to Newcastle, to Bayern Munich, in the first place. So are Newcastle going to come in for him? It remains to be seen. But I think either way, the fact that, both of these are on this list at the moment means that they both could be in there. If, Liam Delap in particular, I think that we'd have kind of put the word out and been like, Liam Delap's absolutely not for sale and he's untouchable or whatever, because we see the potential in him. But I think after Liam Rosenior working for him for the while that he has, he probably sees it's just not going to work. And I like Liam Delap, so I wouldn't want to keep him around next season, especially with Omega in, if he's just not going to get any game time. I'd like to see him go and develop and flourish, because ultimately I'd like to see him get into the England team one day. Right, so we're moving on. Orny is back. David Ornstein has done an interview with NBC USA. He's been talking about Liam Rosenior, and he's been talking about the kind of players that Chelsea are going to be looking for, and echoing something that Liam Rosenior recently said in a press conference pertaining to the kind of players that we're going to go in for in the summer. So, breaking, David Ornstein on NBC/USA on Liam Rosenior. To my knowledge, they don't intend to review the coaching position until at least the earliest, the summer of 2027, at the end of his first full season, which was the case for Pochettino and Maresca as well. So, look, this is I've kind of been saying this for a while. A lot of guys have disagreed with me. I've had some really interesting conversations with Kai from Behind the Dugouts, Mo from the Blue Lounge, Jan from Football Therapy, and I just think that Liam Rosenior is sticking around. Do you know what I mean? I think that if you look at the way that they've they're not actually that trigger happy. It's crazy. It's seen because we've had so many managers, it feels like they're really trigger happy. But the individual nuance and minutiae of each situation is very particular. Graham Potter got kept until we were in 12th place with a 38% win percentage, and he was just awful. So he had to go. Thomas Tuchel was fired pretty quickly. Okay, that's fair. Pochettino only ever had a 1+1 deal, and compared to the 7.5-year deal for Graham Potter, the 5.5-year deal for Maresca, and the 6.5-year deal for Liam Rosenior, it felt like the writing was on the wall for Pochettino from the beginning. Obviously, then Maresca comes in. Maresca wasn't sacked, he walked. Do you know what I mean? So, and Liam Rosenior, even if we don't get Champions League, it looks like Liam Rosenior is going to be sticking around, because what they want to do is keep a manager around for the long term. And they will be looking at the likes of Arteta at Arsenal, right? Arteta finished 8th twice in a row. Do you know what I mean? Twice in a row. There was a lot of Arteta out at the time as well. But look at where they are now, challenging for the Premier League for the last few seasons. And ultimately, yes, they haven't got over the line yet, but you have to see the progression in there and what Arteta's gone and done with the squad. So at the same time, I know it's not exactly the same situation, but I expect Liam Rosenior to stick around. I don't expect him to be sacked. I think it's, and there's so much talk about it at the moment, and there are managers that I would love to see, and personally, I wish we'd have got Cesc Fabregas, but I understand that that's difficult. He's taken Como into the Champions League. He's part owner of the club over there. It's not as simple as come and take the Chelsea job because you want it. I think the thing is, Liam Rosenior is the company man. They know him really well. He came over from Strasbourg, where he'd done quite well there as well. And he's working at what we do keep hearing is he's always talking to the sporting directors about what's going on next summer. And that in itself is a massive indication for him not going anywhere. So look, all of the noise, not all of the noise, but a lot of the noise surrounding Chelsea at the moment is about Bluco out, Bluco can sell, and Liam Rosenior needs to get sacked. I'm not going to lie to you, man. Realistically, personally, I just don't think these things are going to happen. And if David Ornstein is to be believed, which he usually is, to be completely honest, it looks like that's going to be the case, specifically where Liam Rosenior is concerned. So, Mr. Ornstein was also asked about Chelsea's transfer window in the summer and the kind of players that we're going to go in for, and he had this to say. Chelsea have plans to improve their squad this summer. They're looking for greater emotional resilience and maturity. Players who are ready to start and impact straight away. This isn't necessarily saying older or more experienced or players who are used to playing in the Premier League. It's just players who hit the above criteria. So I find that really, really interesting. There's a lot to break down there, and if you look at the players that we've been linked with already in Murillo and Van Hecke, like they meet a lot of the criteria that he's saying that we're not looking for. Do you know what I mean? A bit more experience, a bit more time in the Premier League. But at the same time, Cole Palmer, for instance, was a player that just came in and had the emotional maturity to play well. Do you know what I mean? And I think that when we talk about emotional maturity, I think we're looking at the likes of Wesley Fofana and we're looking at the likes of Pedro Neto, who especially recently have been quite petulant. I think that even looking at Enzo Fernandez and the outburst that he's been having, like I think if you look at emotional maturity, you look to a player like Marco Correa. Do you know what I mean? Marco Correa, who, yes, he had pointed comments and but he did it in a way of leadership. Marco Correa doesn't lose his head when things are going badly on the field. Do you remember that one game with Marco Correa where he had like some new Puma boots and he slipped over twice and we conceded 2 goals? I think it was against Tottenham, and we conceded 2 goals, and instead of absolutely losing his head and letting it ruin him for the rest of the game, he just got up, changed his boots, and we came back and won the game. That is emotional maturity. That is the kind of player that we need. A player that can understand that things are going badly in and around the club, on the pitch at the moment, and still pull out a performance. So look, if that is a data set that you can analyze and find, and I don't know it is, because that feels like kind of more of an intangible, right? How a player deals with these moments, especially when they're not a bit older and a bit more experienced. But if that is the kind of player that we can go in for, 100% I'm down with it. Do you know what I mean? Murillo can be a bit of a bruiser, I guess, so I'm not sure if he fits that, but Van Hecke looks like to be that kind of calm, astute player, and he is 25 as well. But either way, David Ornstein is essentially backing up and echoing what Liam Rosenior said a little while ago in a press conference. So is anyone calling David Ornstein a brown envelope? Like, no, I don't think so. Do you know what I mean? And I generally I think that David Ornstein has probably got the most clout in terms of being a solid journalist, that when he comes out and says things, they are usually true. So interesting, really, really interesting. I like David Ornstein, and I think it's very interesting. And I think it goes back to the thing that he said before as well about Liam Rosenior not going anywhere. There is a plan. Do you know what I mean? Liam Rosenior has identified the issue with the squad that he's got. And if they are, this is the thing as well, isn't it? This is the thing. Like, a lot of the fans, we've all been really unhappy that Enzo Maresca wasn't given more power, more trust, more control, or whatever. And that seemed to be a faux pas. Now Liam Rosenior is being given the same thing. That has to be seen as progress, right? They are listening to the manager a little bit more. It was Liam Rosenior's decision, which I'm going to get into in a minute, to bench Enzo Fernandez for these 2 games, and that was backed up by the sporting directors. It's not the other way around. Liam Rosenior came in and said, I'm benching him for 2 games, and they supported him in that. So look, if we want the manager to be given more freedom, if we want the manager to be given more responsibility and power to shape and control the squad the way that he wants without too much interference from the sporting directors, I think that's what we're starting to see, and that has to be seen as progress for anyone that is not happy with the model at the moment. So moving on, Liam Rosenior obviously has done the press conference for the Man City game, and he's had some interesting things to say. Now, I had a chat with Jan from Football Therapy in my It's Time to Talk About podcast series, which you should go and check out if you haven't already, because it was a great time. And one of the things I mentioned was, I really hope Liam Rosenior uses this international break in order to kind of reassess, reanalyze like what's going on. Obviously, the big conversation at the moment is largely, well, not at the moment, but back then when we were getting drubbed by PSG and, Everton, was, do we change the system now in order to get the team playing the way that Rosenior wants, or do we just focus on results for the rest of the season? I think what he had to say here actually pertains to that. Rosenior said, this week is the first since I've been here that we've had 2 clear training days in a row to work on things. I don't think a magician can make the team look exactly how we want to in the time that I've been at the club. I want to adapt and evolve the team, but never at the expense of winning in the short term. You can't change too much too soon. This is something I looked at with the staff during the international break, so that we don't change too many things and we can win games in the short term, but also we'll still work towards what we want in the long term. So that to me says, and what I hope it says, and we will see in the Man City game tomorrow, the big thing there is the Rob Sanchez situation, isn't it? It's like asking Rob Sanchez to play out from the back is costing us games. Dropping him in favour of Philip Jorgensen, who can play out from the back a little bit but is not as good a goalkeeper, is costing us games. We have got a finite run and finite opportunities in order to get into the Champions League this season. There are definitely 5 spots available, maybe 6, depending on what goes on with Aston Villa, and we have to pick up as many points as possible. And also, we've got a really good chance of winning the FA Cup this year. Do you know what I mean? Leeds, although we've had a torrid time against Leeds this season, that's a game we should be winning. And then obviously probably Man City in the final, I would have thought. It'd be interesting to see, and especially how this game goes. But what is really interesting, and I think really positive about that for me, is there is some sort of semblance there of Liam Rosenior looking at the fact that he's tried to change the squad too soon, too quickly, and in order to get the results we need for the rest of the season, we need to go back to keeping things a little bit more simple. And what that essentially means is playing Rob Sanchez in a way that he isn't melting down every single game and costing us games. Now, the obvious issue with all this Liam Rosenior is a good talker. He started very well, the generational PR run that he went on at the beginning, and often has said the right thing, although sometimes, respecting the ball, and there's a few cringe moments and stuff. So I guess the issue with Rosenior at the moment is I loved everything he had to say at the start, but I need to start seeing it being backed up by decisions being made before and in games. You know what I mean? His in-game management in general has been pretty good for the most part, except things like the PSG game and whatever. But I think what hopefully we're seeing now, it's not even just a PR thing. It's not even just about his image. Like, we need to be making cuter decisions, right, in tough moments and just trying to get through games. Do you know what I mean? So, do we play a back five against Man City because of their attacking force? Like, I don't know, but decisions like that need to be looked at. I think it's good. I do, like I say, I worry a little bit because Liam Rosenior has a habit of saying the right thing, and then obviously we're not always seeing it backed up on the pitch. But as he said, he's had a good 2 weeks to work with his squad at this point. So hopefully some of those messages have gone in, and hopefully we've got a clear plan to get us through the rest of the season until we can get the players that he wants to be able to more comfortably play the style of football that he wants. So we'll move on to a little bit of team news. Liam Rosenior was asked about Reece James and Trevor Chalobah, and he said, Rosenior says Chalobah is back on the pitch and Reece James has started running again. Rosenior adds that Esteval playing 90 minutes versus Port Vale was a huge positive. There was another tweet out there somewhere that said that we are not going to see Chalobah or Reece James in this game. And, Savage, that's going to be difficult. Maybe Tyson Adarabioyo gets the shout because he seems to be working his way back into the team, at least for the rest of the season. And Wesley Fofana has been pretty dross for a little while, hasn't he? So I don't know, man. I'm still not sure what our backline's going to look like against Man City, but at the same time, it's positive that we are going to see Chalobah and Reece James back for the run-in towards the end of the season. I think that's really positive, and I'm hoping we start to see a bit more of Esteval Willian as well, because obviously man of the match against Port Vale, but it was Port Vale. But either way, without Enzo Fernandez in the team to play in that number 10, you have to imagine that Cole Palmer plays in the 10 and Esteval Willian plays on the right, and then one of Pedro Neto or Alejandro Garnacho plays on the left, probably Pedro Neto, to be completely honest. Even though he's not been great recently, he's still been obviously much better than Alejandro Garnacho, hasn't he? So we've got some players coming back in the future. We're not going to see them for the Man City game, but maybe we see them back for the Man United game. And like I say, Reece James and Trevor Chalobah have been two. I mean, obviously, Reece James is absolutely incredible and can win games on his own. But Trevor Chalobah, as I went through earlier in the player stats that we've been looking at, has been one of our most consistent centre-backs this season and is so versatile, can cover lots of positions in that defensive line. So the last thing we're going to look at is pertaining to the rumour that the players went to ask Liam Rosenior if Enzo Fernandez could play in the Man City game. So I thought this was quite interesting. From Chelsea Dodgers via Nizar Kinsella, Liam Rosenior outright denied players asked him to reduce Enzo Fernandez's ban by one game to face Man City. Liam said, not true, no one. So he's coming out swinging there, man. And I don't really know what to make of it, but what I do, like I said, I've mentioned this before, I think you have to stick with that. I think that at this point at the moment, like I haven't got it, but there was another tweet talking about apparently the rumours are Liam Rosenior doesn't at the moment hold the same aura in the dressing room as Pochettino did or as Enzo Maresca did. So he's got to be starting to win players respect, right? And a little bit of that can come through fear. If he banned Enzo Fernandez for the Port Vale game that he was probably never going to play anyway because it was Port Vale, and then you let him back for the City game, he's basically had no punishment. Do you know what I mean? And he's just kind of gotten away with what he said scot-free. So at the end of the day, I'll completely back Rosenior banning Enzo Fernandez because it has to set a precedent to the rest of the squad. Like I say, Marco Correa is not being punished for the things that he said because he did it in an eloquent and an informative way that, and they would have preferred that, they'd have kept it in-house or whatever, but what Marco Correa did for me was a lot less egregious than what Enzo Fernandez did. And I think the rest of the squad need to see, if you want to angle for a move, talk about it to the club. Don't say silly things in the press and try and force these moves yourself. I think that was probably a massive faux pas from Javier Pastore, his agent, as well, to be completely honest. But like I say, I do think that this is positive that Liam Rosenior is sticking by these decisions. Enzo Fernandez could win us the game. It is a difficult one to kind of justify in that respect. Do you know what I mean? Because in terms of just getting through the Man City game, 100% Enzo Fernandez is the kind of guy that can arrive with a late goal and win the tie. Do you know what I mean? We've seen it a few times this season already. And obviously, he's our vice captain, so he's the most decorated leader outside of Reece James in our squad. So obviously, Moises Caicedo looks like he's been given the captaincy. We'll have to see him wait and see what happens with that. But either way, I actually support Liam Rosenior's decision to drop Enzo Fernandez, and I think it needs to do one or two things. It needs to either make Enzo Fernandez angle for this move away the right way, or it needs to make him want to get back into the squad for the rest of the season, but only time will tell. So nice one, guys. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for sticking around until the end of the video. If you did, let me know what you think about all of these things today. Murillo, Van Hecke, do we like them? I personally would be happy to see both of them in at the moment. Would we be happy to see Liam Delap go? Is it too early? Does he need more time? Can Newcastle save us from the Nicholas Jackson situation? What do you think about David Ornstein's comments on Liam Rosenior not going anywhere and us looking for emotionally mature players in the summer? And obviously we've got Liam Rosenior. Do you think that he has taken this time in the international break to do something, change the game a little bit, do you know what I mean? And just try and focus on results for the rest of the season? Personally, I hope so, but we will see in the Man City game tomorrow. Thank you very much, guys. Have an absolutely wicked day, and I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.